Hey everyone, it's Ray from the Teach Better team, and I am here with the one and the only Kevin Butler for Teacher Appreciation Week. I am so excited to be live with Kevin. I have so many questions for you, Kevin. I cannot wait for you to just give me so many different suggestions because you are always my go-to guy. But more importantly, outside of all my questions, we're live for 7 days to celebrate Teacher Appreciation Week. Take your questions and celebrate educators. Kevin and I are both still in the classroom. We love talking shop, and that is what this video is going to be full of. So we'll be right back. If you are watching while this little clippy thing plays, please throw your name in the comments, say hi, tell us where you're watching from, and if you have a question that you are dying to ask the Kevin Butler, feel free to post that. We'll get to those soon. So we'll be right back. Oh my gosh, Kevin, the comments are already flooding in because we are streaming on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch. But I just want to give us a moment. We literally just finished teaching and now we're live. Do you need some deep breathing exercises before we get into this? How you feeling?
I'm good. We had a good day today. It's Tuesday. We're at the halfway point tomorrow. So
That's very true. It's funny because you and I were texting earlier or emailing, and you were like, legitimately, this is going to be 2 minutes after my last student's out the door. And I was like, oh, see, I was griping because this was a full hour after my last student was out the door. I thought that was really close in timing. And then you were like, no, legitimately, I just had a kid in here.
No, yeah. And they were like, can we stay? I'm like, nope, you can't stay. You're going. Bye. See you later.
And it's like the loving way, right? Get out, get out, get out, get out. I love it.
Yes.
Well, Kevin, I was just chatting about you the other day because people were telling me how much they loved your 12-hour live segment that you did with Katie Miglin. Now all those segments are accessible in a free course in our Teach Better Academy. But let's pretend that somebody watching right now doesn't know who you are. Can you tell us a little bit about you? And then I want to add to that because I know that you're not going to talk about all the greatness that you do because you're so humble, but give us the background and then I can't wait to dive in further.
Sure. So this is year 18 as a classroom teacher. I started all the way on the East Coast. I'm currently in California right now. I'm in LA. I spent the first 12 years teaching 5th grade in New York in a public school out on Eastern Long Island. And then I had a really unique opportunity about 7 years ago to come out to Los Angeles and help a startup school. I was consulting with them as well as teaching their first 5th grade group of kids. So that was really cool. My school in New York was really kind enough to give me a leave of absence for a year. So that was a sweet deal. That 1 year turned into 2 years. And then my school in New York was like, well, you've got to decide, are you going to come back? We would love you to come back, but we also understand if you want to spread your wings a little and try something new. So it was probably February-ish, and I was at the beach, and my friends were shoveling snow. So I decided to stay in California. The startup school wasn't for me, but I'm going into just wrapping up my 5th year at the school that I'm literally at right now. It's an independent school. It's a K-6 independent school in the suburbs of Los Angeles. I teach 5th grade full-time, and I am also a full-time administrator too. I am our director of curriculum and instruction K-6. So I wear 2 hats. So it's really quite interesting. I attend a lot of meetings, and that's me in a nutshell.
I can only imagine the number of meetings you must sit in, both from a classroom perspective and from a administrative perspective of looking at curriculum and instruction and supporting educators. I don't know how you do it, but I love that you have both roles because I feel like you're truly modeling not only the ability to be in the trenches with students, working with parents constantly, but then also the leadership level. And I know you've done incredible work even outside of the role that you just described, working with teachers at conferences and workshops and everything in between. So I am such a fan, but also very appreciative of you. I know this is all about teacher appreciation, Kevin. I want to make sure I put it out there. I'm so appreciative of the work you do, honestly.
Well, the feeling is mutual. And it's a really unique situation. I never thought I would find myself in an independent school. I'm super pro public school. I went to public school growing up. But I think a position like this really is difficult to have in a public school. So, it is neat to wear both hats. And I think it's beneficial for me, and the school also benefits because I could have very, honest conversations with our admin team about, the feeling of the staff and, do you think, how are they going to feel about this? And maybe we need to slow it down, or maybe we should try this, so it's mutually beneficial.
Yeah, it's interesting. I wasn't necessarily planning on asking you about your role so much, but I have to ask a follow-up question. I have so many friends right now, or people that have reached out to me, colleagues, acquaintances, people in my PLN, who are looking to either switch jobs or trying to still find the right job for them in their current time. This is interview season. We've discussed so much tips and tricks of interviewing. And I think that I just want to emphasize that, Kevin, you're a great person for people to reach out to if they have questions on what's it like to move schools? What's it like to take a leave of absence? I've been put in a situation where I was thinking about that for a while, or have in my career. And what does that feel like? What are the things you should consider? Who are the pieces and parts that you should make sure fit together before you make the call? And so if you're listening right now and you have questions about changing roles or what it's like to do some of those pieces, Kevin, I always appreciate something about you, that it's so easy to reach out to. You're always so accessible and you're always trying to help people. So I just want to make sure I give that call to action to everybody that they can reach out to you.
Definitely.
So it's comical for me to see you in your classroom because last year around this time, we did a webinar series. So everybody was in lockdown. Everybody was home. My office was differently placed and I was in a different kind of setup. And I remember watching your webinar, and for your webinar, you used a background where you took a picture of your classroom. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
It was so funny. His Zoom background was his classroom. And now I'm like, are you really there? Are you sure it's not just a dummy background?
No, that's the real deal.
It's the real deal. That's awesome. So I have always gone to you for engagement strategies, but before I dive into all that, I have to know, can I just ask you what you did today in class? We are living in Teacher Appreciation Week. We have a ton of people that are not only celebrating educators, in the classroom, but also virtually. I'm seeing so many shout outs, but while that's all going on, we're all still teaching. We're all working with students. So what did you do with your kids today?
Let's see. Today we started out with our morning meeting, which maybe we'll get into a little bit later.
Yeah.
Add that. We finished our novel. We just finished up reading A Long Walk to Water. Have you ever read that book?
I have not. Tell me more.
It is a historical narrative. It's nonfiction and fiction kind of mixed together, but it's about the Lost Boys of Sudan. So it's a really great story. Awesome for 5th through probably 7th or 8th grade. So if you're looking for a novel. So we finished our novel today. And I always love when we get to the last page and you hear they're upset that the book is over. Yes, we did it. We did it.
Yes.
Then in math today, we've been spending some time on 3-dimensional shapes. So today we took it to the next level and they had to design an aquarium tank for a new fictitious aquarium opening up in Los Angeles. So they had to create an aquarium tank that would go into our new fictitious aquarium here in Los Angeles. But there was a lot of criteria. So they had to use 2 or more combined rectangular prisms. Okay. And they had to sketch everything out. They had to find the base area. They had to tell me what type of shape it was. And then there were limits of how much water it could hold. So they worked together. You might be able to see one of their posters a little bit behind me there.
Okay.
Designed it all out, and then had to research just one fish that they would put in it to bring a little bit of science into this project. And they came up and they presented their aquariums to the class. So that was math today.
Love that.
Social studies, we just wrapped up our Revolutionary War unit. So we went over a study guide for that. We were wrapping up some persuasive essays and writing. And that was pretty much our day. Oh, and then my class decided, so for their persuasive essays that we are publishing, part of the criteria is they do have to put photographs in. So some of them were putting photos of themselves, and then somebody said, oh, can I put a photo of you, Mr. Butler? Yes. Put a photo. And then that led to, let's Google Mr. Butler. So they were Googling me. And that just led to...
Don't you love when that happens?
It's not me who's coming up. You Google me, you get like 2 pictures, the real me. But if you Google my name, you're going to get all of these. Somebody was like incarcerated. So it was a good 10 minutes of laughing in here.
Yeah. That sounds like a really good brain break to me. Yeah. I don't know. It's interesting. I do want to get to your morning meetings, but specifically with math, it sounds like our classes are doing similar things. You're working with creating an aquarium. You're working with shapes. You're like working with volume. It sounds like. I love that you brought in science. I am eagerly awaiting. I feel like a bad teacher because I'm waiting and dying for Monday. I don't care about the unit we're in. I just want to get through the week. I'm just waiting for Monday. And here's why. I'm the worst teacher. Because on Monday, we start my favorite unit, and I didn't get to do it last year. And you know how it is when you have a unit that you know that all your students are so engaged and there's so many positives of this unit. Anywho, we have a unit sponsored by Lego where we have Lego suits. Students are actually building life-size Lego suits, and one student in the class needs to be able to put it on. So each group is making the hand or the arm or the head or the torso, whatever. I am just waiting and dying for Monday. But I was thinking alongside the aquarium description you provided, my students have to sketch it out first. They have all these requirements. I love those types of projects.
Right. Yeah. This is funny. This is the unit we did not get to last year because it's so hands-on that it was just not something that adapted to virtually, because then on Monday we start building bridges out of popsicle sticks as well, using triangles and stuff. So yeah.
See, I'm telling you, because that was the one part. I think I had gotten a lot of tips where I was able to adapt a lot for this year, but specifically last spring, there were so many unknowns. The requirements were wishy-washy. What we could even ask of students was so challenging. Technology was still being discovered. And so while that was going on, a lot of the manipulative activities that I normally would be bringing to students, we kind of put to the side, or I did, and I hated doing it, but it just was what it was, which I think is why I loved your webinar series you did so much last year, because you truly spoke on all these physical things you could do with students, even though they weren't in front of you. And I just think that's so valuable right now to try and figure out how to bring in those manipulatives when you can't necessarily have students sharing resources, or you can't necessarily be giving them all the resources they need, all that in between.
I hear you.
So if you're listening to this right now, by the way, Kevin and I are talking shop, and we're going to get into a lot of elements of student engagement because obviously that is Kevin's expertise. He does so much work with supporting teachers and not only being strong educators and making sure that their content's rigorous, but also ensuring that students are enjoying the learning experiences that we provide them in the classroom and outside of the classroom. So feel free to put your questions in the comments if you guys are listening and you have any. The one element I did want to move to, Kevin, was about morning meetings. And I feel like I was supposed to yell at you probably off screen because you didn't really get to dive into this as much as I wanted you to during the 12-hour live. Katie and you guys had so much to cover that I was like, but I have more questions on the morning meetings because I love this concept. I implemented bits and parts during COVID, but it's so powerful. So will you give a quick summary, but then I would love for us to be able to ask questions not only through me, but also through the comments.
Sure. So, and this is something I always, when I share and talk about it, you can tweak it to make it your own. So what I do is most likely not going to fit in your schedule, but I have seen this all from down to kindergarten up to 12th grade. So you could take pieces of this and somehow incorporate it. So if you are a high school teacher and not teaching your class in the morning, you can just call it a class meeting. Like, it doesn't have to be a morning meeting. But here it is our morning meeting. It is the first 15 minutes of our school day. And right behind me, there's this little stage.
Mhm.
And we basically, if you could think in your head in the mindset of Live with Kelly Ripa and Ryan Seacrest, that show.
I love that show. I love that show.
You mix them with Late Night with Jimmy Fallon.
Oh,
And you've got my morning show. So those are like the two, you bring those together, and that's how we start. So I am one co-host, and then every day a new student is picked to be a co-host. They come up right behind me on stage there, and we really just start out with a conversation. And the whole purpose behind it is to build their public speaking skills, like their presentation skills. Now, with wearing masks, that's something new. Like, we've got to project our voice. If I could project my voice, you've got it, because your voice is just as important as mine. So that's really the purpose behind it, is to build those communication skills. But we come up, we talk about what we did the night before. Where did you go? What did you have for dinner? Did you go somewhere? I'll usually have like some type of news article. I'll get their opinion. Today's news article was someone drove from Florida to Texas with an owl like stuck to the front of their car, and they didn't know the owl was there.
oh my gosh.
The owl survived the journey. They went from like Naples, Florida, I think, up to somewhere in Texas or Alabama maybe. And when they got there, they were like, wow, and the owl was still alive. That was pretty cool.
Thank goodness. Yeah, that is very cool.
That was our like little news story for the day. And then we always have a question of the day. Today's question of the day was, write a list of things that annoy you.
Ooh.
So we shared our list of things that annoyed each other. And then the co-host gets to pick classmates who volunteer to share their list, their answer to the question of the day, which also has a part of how are you feeling today and why. The students don't have to share that, but they do keep a journal. So that part is optional. But the second part, if you're called to tell today what annoys you, we got some pretty interesting answers. Yeah. I got a lot of chalk, fingernails on chalk. And I said, none of you have ever probably been in a classroom even with a chalkboard. That's
what I was thinking. I'm like, I don't know that I've been in a classroom with a chalkboard unless I brought the chalkboard in, because I do like chalkboards. But that's something that people say, but how many people have actually heard it? I don't know. Maybe in a cartoon.
Maybe, but that was like a very popular answer today. And then we always play a game. So this is like where, if you watch Jimmy Fallon, he plays like these fun games with celebrities. So today's game was just like basic, like ring toss, but you had to answer questions. And for every question my co-host answered correctly, he won. He got a ring, but I set it up. It takes a lot of thought, because I set the questions up so that he would know the answer. The first one had something to do with social studies that we were learning about. But the second one was like, what's my father's address? He's like, I'm not going to know your father's address. And then I won one. So then we got to compete in the game at the end. He won. I lost ring toss.
I'm so sorry.
It's okay. And then we just wrap it up. So that's our morning meeting. It's fun.
Yeah, Kevin, what I love is that you're always willing to share. So because I have your undivided attention here, we already have some comments coming in as well. I want to focus on actually asking some nitty-gritty questions. Do you mind?
Yeah. No, I don't mind.
I appreciate that. So the way that we saw this implemented really easily was in our advisory time. I've seen it at the end of the day. I actually had a class hour that really needed some downtime. It was like right after lunch, and they just needed like 5-10 minutes to get their head together before we got into content. So these were great suggestions of things that, whether we pulled it in for the entire time, it sounds like you have, a good chunk of time you can dedicate to it, or just bits and pieces. It was so fun to see students get to participate in this. And I love your focus and emphasis on giving students a platform to practice their speaking and listening skills. I mean, shouldn't we all just continue to do that even better? So tell me a little bit about, like, logistically. For instance, the first thing you were talking about, like the news story. Can you tell me about, like, do you pick the news story? Is that something that you just kind of have a running list, like on a sticky note somewhere that you're going to bring up? How does that work for you and your system?
It'll all depend on the day. If something is happening in the news, that's very serious. Like recently, we had some discussions with Black Lives Matter, I will give the parents a heads up and say, this is going to be a news article that we're going to be talking about this morning. We never did, like, that wouldn't be something we were debating. We were just sharing factual information. What did we know about it? But most of the time it's me in the morning Googling, like, what happened yesterday in the news that's like funny.
Yeah. No, but
Pop up.
But that's a great strategy. I mean, truly, I think there's a lot of educators out there wanting to do things, but really the execution is sometimes so tricky. And you want to make sure that if you do it once, you can kind of get some consistency and routine, because we know our students benefit from that. So the silly idea of type into Google, what funny news happened yesterday, that's a perfect gimme that we can all do. And something's going to come up. Do you ever save a story? Like, do you ever find two and then you use them back to back?
Sometimes, like, if it's really random, I just did it last week. It was like the top 10 candy bars sold in 2020. That list just came out.
Yeah.
So that was part of, like, they had to guess, and we talked a little bit about that. Another really good resource, like a cheat sheet, but it's also great to share with your class. Sometimes we just don't have time to watch it, but CNN 10.
Oh, I love CNN 10. Watch it every day.
CNN 10 is really great.
Yeah, and I like that they have a really good variety of resources. I mean, you could even talk about the CNN Heroes that they do. Those are great.
Exactly.
So what about signing students up? Like, do students know they're the co-host? Do they sign up? Do you sign them up? How do you operate that policy? Especially, I don't know if it's changed with COVID, but, how do you do that?
We did this virtually. It was the format was a little bit different virtually. It was a little bit shorter. It's so much better doing it back in person. Almost all the time it is just who wants to be my co-host this morning. And really the rule is you can't be the co-host 2 days in a row. And then if there's a lot of people, I'm like, if you were the co-host this week, you need to put your hand down. Every now and again, I will reach out to someone ahead of time and be like, I really would like you to be the co-host tomorrow, especially the quieter kids who aren't quite sure they want to navigate up on that stage behind me.
Yeah.
Kind of give them a heads up. I'll be like, this is the game that we're going to play. This is the news story I'm going to talk about. So if you want to go home and learn a little about it, so you can add to the conversation. I had a student just recently, like we were having a difficult couple of weeks, and he loves the weather. He loves the weather. So I sent him an email. I'm like, you're really passionate about meteorology. I want you to create the game. You create the game, and I'm going to be the contestant, and you're going to be the host. So he quizzed me on, like, all these cool weather facts. So,
well, and I love that for 1,000 reasons. The big ones that are sticking out to me is you're doing it on a volunteer basis. So you're able to have students advocate that they want to be participating. But then on the flip side, as a teacher, you can really differentiate to say, this is a student that isn't volunteering. That's data to be able to say, like, oh, okay, this student isn't raising their hand for the last few days. I can reach out. I can see what makes them uncomfortable, or how can I re-engage them? And then you can have those, like, secret behind the scenes conversations. So when they do volunteer, it looks natural. Nobody needs to know that they were nervous or that they were in on it. I love that ability to make everybody feel confident when they come up versus a sign up, which, to be honest, when you said that, I was like, oh, you must just put students on a list. They just go down the list and they just do it. And then you're going to inevitably have a student who doesn't feel prepared, who doesn't feel supported, not because the teacher, doesn't want to, but they, maybe ignorantly. And, then it's a not positive experience. So I love the ability to volunteer, but also kind of like have those, backside conversations too.
Right. It is the morning, and, I don't know what happens necessarily from the time they woke up to the time they walked into my classroom door. So maybe they are having a bad day. So I would never force anybody to come up, but I've been doing this probably for about 4 or 5 years now. And by the end of the year, everyone has at least tried it once. Everybody has at least tried it once. And then we have our favorites who are the future talk show hosts of the world. So.
But you know what? And that is so much along the lines of, I really believe that we need to give students the opportunity to collect the characteristics that they really love to find their future role. So if you have students who are constantly volunteering, that's great. That's more information for them to say, I do want to be in a role where I'm front and center speaking or, doing something fun like that. So that's really good to know too.
And it's cool because they're next to me. I mean, we used to be a lot closer, but now we are spread out, for health reasons.
Sure.
But so there's that safety net that, like, Mr. Butler's there. So if they stumble or if they're not like they don't have something to say right away, I could lead the conversation.
That is awesome. I do have more questions for you, but we had a question pop up asking if you were in person, remote, a mix. Can you just clarify that? I love that you said you were in person recently, but is that all students, some students? How's that work?
We were completely remote until January. Then it was a hybrid for a couple weeks, but now we are fully back. My class is fully back, and I would say about 99% of our school is fully back. Los Angeles, our numbers are super, super low right now, so we're really happy.
I know. I feel like I need to knock on wood for that. Give me 1 second. I really just need us all to take a moment. We're so appreciative.
Like in December, but things are looking really good. So.
Okay, so I asked you about how you pick students. I asked you about the news. When it comes to the game, I won't lie to you. I love games, huge fan of games, but that sounds like a lot of work to create a new game every time. So can you give me like the teacher perspective? Do you have a few games that you play, kind of like Jimmy Fallon has a few games he plays over and over, different questions, different guests? Is that how you do it?
Yes. So we have big ones that we'll play a couple of times throughout the year. I have those in a little cabinet, so if there's a day I'm running late or I forgot, we can just pull that right out.
Yep.
There are days where I've just put a tic-tac-toe board up, and that's our game. But we do everything from like bouncing tennis balls into a bucket, sometimes trivia, if again, don't have time for something really creative. Name that tune we've done, which is cool. So you just need your phone and Spotify and a speaker. You could play Name That Tune really fast. Yesterday, I did a new one. It was Name That Photo. So I just went to Google the night before, because sometimes I do. I'm like, oh, I need a good game. We've been doing boring ones. So I just grabbed some photos from Google, and then I zoomed in really close, and they had to guess it as before I zoomed all the way out. So that was one that we played. Categories is also a really easy one, because I just pick someone. I'm like, say a letter C, okay? And then the co-host and I, things found in a supermarket that start with the letter C, and we just go back and forth. Two truths, lie.
Carrots. Trying to think of other C's. Cups, carrots,
cabbage,
chips.
I just played this the other day.
Coleslaw.
Parts.
There you go. Okay. All right. I'm a fan. All right. Yep. And sorry, what did you say? Two truths and a lie?
Two truths and a lie is a really good one. And then like Tiny Hands is really fun. That's like a game that you could buy at Target. It comes with like 2 sets of really tiny hands. And then I'll buy like marshmallows or Skittles or M&Ms. And it's like, who could fill the cup up first with their little tiny hands? A lot of these, you can go on my Instagram page and you could see a lot of these little clips of.
Yeah, I do. When Em says that, Katie gives you a shout out. Says you always have the best ideas. You really do, Kevin. And I want to encourage anybody, if you're listening to this right now, guys, go share this video so that other educators can not only celebrate Teacher Appreciation Week, but also connect with Kevin. I just really appreciate Kevin. Sometimes I get stressed about the work I'm doing. Sometimes I feel like I'm not doing enough. And what I love about your suggestions is that you make them seem so manageable. And I don't know if it's your inflection in your tone or if it's really just your mindset on life. But like when I asked you the question, I'm like, I cannot come up with a new game every single day, Kevin. Don't do it. And then I'm thinking, and I'm like, well, geez, with all those suggestions, it seems like I've 2 months already planned, because you're really just finding a game and connecting content to it versus making the game content. I don't know how to describe that, but they're able to participate in something that you can use over and over, and that makes it so much more manageable.
And like, if you just go to the dollar store, and go up like the toy aisle, you'll see something and be like, oh, that's a great game. Like the ring toss we used today, I was just at the dollar store and it was $1. Like great, tomorrow's game done.
I love it. It's so good. So good. Gotta love a good dollar store run too. That's always the best.
It is.
You know, Kevin, I want to be respectful of your time. So I'm going to give an all call, a last shout out to anybody who might have questions for you. But I'm so happy that we're digging these morning meetings, because I know that you share on this all the time, but I always I'm sitting in the background saying, okay, but tell me really how you do it. And so I want to make sure I touched on everything. The beginning. Do you have like a song that plays? Like, how do you how does your morning meeting start, right? The kid's up on stage, you're there, game's all set up, everyone's in the audience, but how do you
I wish I had a better answer for you. It's the kids know that they have 5 minutes from the time our day starts officially at 8:15 to get that journal done.
Okay.
And at that 5-minute mark, I touch the screen. Our day schedule comes up. I just go over the schedule with them, and then I say, "All right, who wants to be my co-host this morning?" And that's how it starts.
Okay, but I really like that.
Not a theme song. There's not like an applause track. It's just, all right, who wants to be my co-host? Sometimes that's like the hardest part, though, picking your co-host.
Oh yeah, for sure, without a doubt. And I know you told me, but how long do you do your morning meetings for that you fit all this into?
It depends on the day, but the way our school is set up, we have morning meeting built into our schedule. So we have 15 minutes built into our schedule. Okay. So it's usually between 10 and 15 minutes.
I just love this opportunity, Kevin. And I really do think it fits into so many classroom styles. If you're a high school teacher, you can do this for 5 minutes before, as class starts. If you're a middle school teacher, you have advisory. I mean, there's endless opportunities.
Yeah, just do a different part. Like you could take the 5 different parts and spread it over a week. You don't have to jam it all into one day.
Oh, I love spreading it out through the week. If you only had a few minutes every single day, you could do like the co-host discussion, you could do the news, you could do the game. Was there other pieces that I missed? I apologize. I should have written these.
Those are the 3 big pieces.
Yeah. I think that's a great opportunity. And you could also double up and do, games 2 times in a row. You could do news only on Tuesdays and Fridays, whatever. I love that opportunity. So Kevin, before we wrap up today, I have a little bit of a question for you that I probably should have prepped before that we should have agreed on, but it really comes back to the fact that it's Teacher Appreciation Week. I was on a phone call this morning with somebody who was asking us, why are we doing so much for Teacher Appreciation Week this week? And to be completely transparent, which we try and do on the Teach Better team, we have never gotten the opportunity to do everything we wanted to do for Teacher Appreciation Week for our incredible Teach Better Team network. And even this year, we're still not doing, as much as we'd like to do. I hope every single year gets better and better. And I'm thrilled that this year we're able to have discount codes and giveaways. There's a giveaway going on right now for so many of you over on Twitter. I love that there are, 7 days of live videos of tips and tricks, but we always want to do more. And I think one of the most meaningful things we could do for teachers sometimes is share our appreciation for them by sharing a specific story about a specific teacher that has impacted us. Because I feel like teachers, we very rarely see the fruits of our labor, right? No matter who your student type is, whether you teach first graders or adults, sometimes we don't get to see our impact. So Kevin, did you have a teacher in your past that you feel like really made a dramatic impact that you can give a little shout out and story to?
Sure. It was my 3rd grade teacher by far. She was just incredible, but she was tough. And the rigor was there. And I remember it as a 3rd grader. I was the student who wanted to finish everything first. I had messy handwriting. I was there for the social part of school. And she slowed me down. And I remember redoing essays numerous times because, my handwriting wasn't neat, but she cared. And I knew she cared. And, I was just having this story. My class the other day just asked me, do you ever get scared when you're in front of us? I'm like, scared? No, I've always wanted to be a teacher. And I was telling them about my 3rd grade teacher. I have the ability to transport myself back into my 3rd grade class. That's how memorable she made it. So I remember sitting there and listening to her read Mr. Popper's Penguins to us, and just being in awe. And a lot of the things that I do 30 years later, are because of her. We have, you can't see them now, but we have frogs in the classroom. We have a fish tank. Those were all things that she had. She always read to us. I read a story to my class every day. I don't care how busy it is, so just taking those things away from her. She's definitely, I was able to go back. I student taught with her. She came to my high school graduation. It was cool.
That is so cool. I love those feel-good stories. And I have seen so many posts, guys, on Facebook. I just saw Caitlin Giordano posted it. I should have brought it up to read it, but it was a Facebook post about educators saying, if I ever taught your child, if I ever taught you, will you share how you are, maybe a memory? Like, will you share with me what your experience was like? And I guess my final challenge to everybody here before we wrap up is to say, yes, we want those, but also if you could take one moment and go give that to somebody else, go reach out to that teacher that made an impact, that person that really inspired you. That is such a gift, a wonderful gift to give during Teacher Appreciation Week. So while I hope each and every one of you gets oodles and oodles of stories from former students or parents, I also want to challenge you to do just one, share just one at least one idea and story with somebody who impacted you too. I think that's so, so, so powerful. Kevin, as we wrap up, do you mind telling me or telling our viewers how they can stay connected to you? I know you mentioned Instagram, but I really want to make sure that everybody goes and follows you. Obviously, you're a part of the Teach Better Team Speakers Network, which has a lot of information about you, but give us the basics.
Sure, it's just the Kevin J. Butler, really on any social media platform, Twitter. Not so great. I'm trying to get better, Ray. I'm trying.
Okay. I'm trying to get better at Instagram. We really need to swap strategies. I don't think we've officially ever done that.
Right. But Teach Better is doing something coming up in like May. I'm sharing something with Instagram.
That's an exclusive training though for our speakers network. So we appreciate that you're doing that with us.
So yeah, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and then the kevinjbutler.com is my little website. And then the kevinjbutler@gmail.com. Feel free to email me anytime.
I love it. Kevin, you are involved in so much that we didn't even get to talk on. You're also speaking a bunch. You do incredible things to support educators all the time. Thank you for coming live with me. I know your time is so valuable and you have 100 things going on, but I really appreciate you taking the time to hang out with the Teach Better family.
My pleasure. Happy Teacher Appreciation, everybody. Enjoy the week.
Yes, happy Teacher Appreciation Week, friends. Don't forget, there is so much. I can't even list it all. There's so many things going on with the Teach Better team this week. We have a Swag and Academy code that's like, we love you. Go look at that. We have a giveaway going on Tuesday through Thursday to win. I think it's a Target gift card and a bunch of other stuff. We have a ton going on, including these lives. We're going to do 7 days of lives just to share appreciation, positivity, and love for each and every educator out there. So please let us know if you need anything. And Kevin, thank you again. For everybody else, we will see you soon. Don't forget about everything going on this week. And if you need anything, we hope you reach out. Bye, guys.
Bye.